I went to high school in Douglas County, Colorado, which is, I don't remember the exact number, but it's in the top 10 of like one of the wealthiest districts in the country. It's not always the showy Beverly Hills money, but like when you actually kind of look at what these kids' parents are making, you're like, that's, 3 or 4 times what my single mom makes. They always had the newest iPhones. They always had, a lot of them drove brand new cars to school, 16, 17-year-olds. I never felt specifically included because I didn't have like the shiniest, newest thing. Certain times my friends would be talking or people around me would be talking, and I would just kind of like, maybe not be involved in the conversation directly, but I would hear it and just kind of think like, do you realize the words that are coming out of your mouth? Because sometimes it would just come from an incredibly privileged place, like, oh, just buy another one. I don't care if I lose it. No big deal, sort of thing. And it's like, well, if I lost my phone, I just don't have a phone. So I realized that I can be kind of abrasive and like loud. So because of that, I've made a cognizant effort to try and be really good at code switching. I mean, I'm a human. I want to be liked. I want to be part of the group. Yeah. So I've just gotten really good at just trying to blend in with whoever I'm with.
When I was going to school in my theater program, my university under like theater performance, I felt Mexican. And by that, I mean, it came across where like certain roles just I wasn't even considered for reading or auditioning because they just kind of saw me as Mexican. I have had a couple of comments where I'm a very tidy person, a very clean person. I like my workspace clean. I'm always cleaning up. And I like to, with my crew, I'm always like, okay, guys, make sure we clean up before we go home. And that's just to me, like for professional sake, personal sakes as well. But I have gotten the note of like, well, she's a Mexican woman. She knows what she's doing. And I'm like, at that point, you don't know what to say when somebody says something like that. Or, oh, you are a hard worker. I can see that now. And you're Mexican, makes sense. I'm like, I'm a hard worker person because that's who I am.
In classical ballet, uniformity is celebrated. So when you throw specks of Blackness into there, you break up the uniformity. What was expressed to me was that you have to be about 10 times better than your white counterparts if you go into this arena, because there's not a lot of space for people of color in the classical ballet world where there's a sea of whiteness. It was the first time I think in my life as a Black person that I felt like discrimination actually like hit me like a ton of bricks. Because the way I think about classical ballet now is that I absolutely have issues with it because of its lack of a lot of stuff, not mostly diversity. And so I felt that had I gone into that direction, that I would have been a tool. And as a tool, it would have been, or a token. And as a token, I would have been placed in situations that would have made my journey much more traumatic than the journey that I went through, where there was a place and a space for me. It's so hard being a person of color in these spaces because you always are questioning, are people giving you opportunities because of your color, or are they giving you opportunities because of your talent? And so I every time something is offered to me, that's the first thing that pops into my head. Like, you want me to be over this diversity committee because I'm Black, or you want me to be over this diversity committee because you think I bring good ideas and you think that I can move the mission of this committee forward. And so I think I always struggle with that. I always felt like I was constantly working overtime to make sure that I had earned my place. And it's not something that people told me, but it's just something you instinctively feel like you're always having to earn your place there.
I was crowned Miss Wheelchair Colorado 2000. And I say that only because it gave me a voice to be able to talk to children in a way that they might understand people with disabilities a little bit more. because they always have questions, but they're always encouraged not to ask. I guess they would be she, her, hers.
Okay.
I mean, I don't. I'm pretty old fashioned. That stuff doesn't matter to me.
Okay.
I mean, I'm just Terry.
Okay.
You know, so that's it's difficult for me because I just don't identify that way. It exemplifies, here I am, see me.
Mm.
And the reason I say that way is because so much of the time, maybe not quite so much anymore, but definitely when I was younger, you put a disabled person in the room and the one thing they want to do is put you in a corner so they don't see you, so they don't have to figure out what to do with you.
A lot of the exclusion came in the casting process, where I couldn't get in the room. Or I'd get in the room and I was told, gee, you're our first choice, but, I mean, I was literally told to my face, you make it an interracial couple. And so, or I'd finally have the opportunity to be with an Asian male, but it was like, gee, you're terrific, but of course he has to have a blonde, blue-eyed girlfriend. And so often the exclusion came before I ever had the opportunity to get in the room. What happens when you're younger and you either try to speak up for yourself or other people do, and harm comes of it, either emotional, physical, or whatever, you learn not to speak up. You learn to hold your place. And so I think a lot of what gets perpetuated today is generational and how we were taught to behave in order not to attract problems, in order, I should be seen and not heard. I needed to be extra good at it, not only at what I did, but in my behavior. One of the greatest blessings in my life has been given the gift to hold space for other people, because I won't let them do that to themselves. I have to create that environment, as you so intuitively picked up on from what I had said, that I need to make a safe space. I need to allow them a place to share what they feel and then help them to find ways to articulate that in areas where it's not safe. And as I was doing that for others, I'm like, how do I not do that for me? I think we live in times where it's hard to separate politics, social awareness, and justice from who we are as artists, but ultimately we have to honor art for what it is, which is an individual expression or collaborative expression of the artists who come together to give you something. We get to have all the opinions about it that we want, but we don't have the right to say you can't do that. We can say I don't like that. I think when you grow up and there's a target on your back based on your ethnicity or whatever, you learn to think 10 steps ahead.
Are you meaning so like a female intimacy director versus like a male intimacy director?
Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's interesting because I think that we do as a society have this bias that women are better at it. And I think women are seen as being we are the females are the pioneers of this movement. But that doesn't negate the fact that men can do it just as well. It just takes a little more practice. And I don't say a little more because they're out of touch, just a little more because oftentimes men are put in places in our cultural society, in the theater society, where they have more power. And one of the big tenets that an intimacy director does is come in and it gives the power to the actors so that we can advocate for them. But it happens a lot that when people see me and they think they see how young I am, they see how, how I present, and I'm very high energy. I have a very bubbly energy, and that naturally makes people think, oh, she's a bimbo. Maybe she was in because of nepotism. Maybe she knows someone, which isn't the case. I worked hard to get here. I'm very skilled and I'm very talented at what I do. That's why I'm in the room. But you have to remember and keep in mind that when you walk into these rooms, oftentimes the rooms that I'm coming in are, middle to late career, people in general. And most of them are white men. I looked up the list of all of the theatrical teachers, and I think there's one, maybe two female theatrical firearms teachers. That's it. And I just said it out loud to everyone. I said, does anyone, like, there's only two or one or however many there was. I said, there's not, this is incredibly offset. So my presence in that world is just to point it out as much as it can, you know, as much as I can. Is just being like, why are there not more? Where is the gatekeeping? Why are women not able to jump forward in their training? Why are women not able to jump forward in being the first person you think of, you know? And it's not even women, it's just anyone who wasn't born male and now is still masculine presenting. It depends on the room. Some rooms I walk in, everyone listens, everything's fine, hunky-dory. Most of the rooms I walk in, if it is what I would consider a traditional theater setting, meaning they're not really hardcore pushing inclusivity. So if it's like more of like what we think of with the white centered and male dominated things, I spend half of my time there proving that I know what I'm doing, because I have seen them be quick to write me off. I have seen them be quick to think I am too ignorant to do it, or not tough enough, or not, you know, et cetera, et cetera. We have a blind spot for anyone who is differently abled than us. We're very ableist, incredibly ableist. And we put, if you're not 100% able to do something for whatever reason, then you can't do it. You can't do it. You know? And I think that excludes too many rich stories.
I am of Mexican descent.
Okay.
My parents spoke fluently.
Fluently Spanish?
Spanish.
Okay.
And my grandparents spoke very little English. And here I am at 67 years old and I don't speak Spanish.
Right.
Which is one of my biggest regrets.
Right.
But the reason that my parents didn't push that on us is that they had grown up with a lot of discrimination when they were growing up. And they didn't want us growing up with any sort of accent. They didn't want us to face the same discrimination they faced. And so they never pushed the Spanish with us. And they always spoke English at home until they didn't want us to know what they were talking about. And then they would speak Spanish.
Right.
But that's still a huge regret. Yeah, because I don't look it. People just assume I'm white, and if they have any sort of preconceived ideas or if they're prejudiced at all, they feel comfortable around me to say it.
Right.
And I have to say, you know, I'm Mexican. And I think that's where prejudice and hate and all that comes from, is they don't understand. They don't take the time to get to know you, so that they can make an educated and an informed judgment. They just know what they've heard. They, it all comes from ignorance and just not knowing.
I'm definitely luckier than some, because some, I think, may struggle with that. It's definitely a thing. I've talked to people who, because it can be frustrating to, be misgendered. And I've talked to people and he was like, the social clues are very important, but also getting those social clues down as someone who's trying to present the other gender, the gender you want, can be really difficult. And that's kind of one of the cool benefits, almost, is to be like, yes, but I also understand what it's like to be female, and what it's like to have that misogyny and discrimination against for being female. And it's like, yes, I'm maybe one of the guys, but I also know how wrong those comments can be. And so I definitely, I approach it differently depending on who I'm talking to and what the situation is, because like I said, if it's someone who doesn't know I'm trans, I might approach it a little differently than for someone who knows I'm trans. And if they bring up the fact that, yeah, you're one of the guys, I'd be like, yeah, but I understand more than you do. I had a production manager who thought she was doing the right thing and trying to support me, but she wasn't. And it was early on enough that she kept telling all the directors that I was going to work with that I was trans. And I kept telling her, like, please don't do that. Like, that's my place, you know, not that I have a problem saying that or whatnot, but, like, please don't, because I don't know this person. I walk into this room and they already know that about me without ever having met me yet. It's improved, but, you know, one of the things that, as I believe I mentioned earlier, one of my struggles growing up is I didn't have the verbiage of what, you know, because it's a lot of stuff's going on emotionally and in your head when, as a member of the LGBT community, and when you don't have the verbiage or the ability to be like, I'm like you.
It also depends on, especially where you are, because where I was living at the time, it was very white dominant, and I find that a lot happening when it's a white, predominantly white community, I do find that they do that a lot, do the token thing. But regardless, I think it is a step in the right direction because it's giving us exposure to tell the stories that we want to tell and hopefully normalize us in those kinds of roles. But it almost felt like, oh, inclusive, everyone's going to be in here. But then you look at it and it's like, well, it's mainly white people with a select few African American people and then no Asian people. So then it turns into where you ticking a box. That's kind of like the feeling where it comes down to, if we only think color conscious casting or colorblind casting, it can lead way to just like insert person of color here to fill out the tokenism. And this is what I call this a very cruel cycle, because as an Asian kid, you know, let's say you have an interest in the arts, you're gonna go on TV, you're gonna watch the shows, and there's no one like you, and then you're gonna get like your mom or your uncle, and they're gonna be like, well, you can't, there's no one that looks like you, what do you think, like you can't do it because they're not gonna want you. And so that is gonna hinder, let's say, like a young 10-year-old girl, boy, whatever, Asian person, to not want to go into the arts. And then that contributes to the lack of exposure and representation that then contributes to kids not seeing that. There's already the people that are in power, like oppressing us, and like they're against, you know, like POC, LGBTQ, women, you know, stuff like that, that it's like we can't afford to then turn on each other, which is, it's part of the reason that I made very clear that I didn't want to be cast in, you know, the project that I mentioned before, because it's like, because, you know, like who said, I mean, like Asians also can't be, like Asians can be racist too. Like I could have played a character in that, but I was like, I don't want to though.
Right.
Because there's like, to have people of color and then use them to then go against each other, it's just, it doesn't help.
Right.
Because we have to be lifting each other up.